All right, folks, let's talk about the issue of abortion. And that is the Indiana House has passed a bill that would ban nearly all abortions in that state, sending that bill back to the state Senate to confer on House changes. House members on Friday advanced the near total abortion ban 62 to 38 with limited exceptions, including in cases of rape and incest, and to protect the life and physical health of the mother. The measure now goes to the Senate. If approved as is, Indiana lawmakers will become the first in the nation to pass new legislation restricting access to abortion since the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in June removing its protected status as a constitutional right. Yesterday on the House floor, House Democrat John Bartlett proposed an amendment to the bill that shook the room ahead of today's vote. And he basically says, okay, y'all want to go after women? Let's go after men.
We're forcing young girls to be mothers, but not forcing the men to be fathers. This bill makes it illegal to prescribe, distribute, supply erectile dysfunction drugs or sexual impotency drugs. If, in fact, an unwanted pregnancy is an act of God, then impotency must be an act of God. I think that there should be some onus put on the men for these pregnancies. And I urge you to vote for this amendment.
I will measure my comments just because I don't want to get in trouble. So at this time, we'll just leave it at that. Please oppose this amendment.
Further discussion on the amendment.
Some may think this is a joke, but it takes two people for a pregnancy to come about. And to put all the onus onto a woman, I just think it's unfair.
Michael, I think it is important to have this conversation. You've got Republicans who want to go after contraception. Okay, fine. Let's deal with Viagra. I mean, what you're dealing with here are largely male lawmakers in D.C., in state capitals, who are behind these laws, but they don't want to do a damn thing when it comes to men and their penises.
You're largely dealing with old white men, too. Some of them are younger, like Matt Gaetz, but you largely, who I call Sugar Daddy Matt Gaetz, a.k.a. the white R. Kelly. But you largely dealing with old white men, okay? So this goes back to what I was saying a couple weeks ago. So now what they're doing, we see they're going after contraceptives, Republicans going after contraceptives, and they're going after the abortion pill, things like this. And a lot of this has to do with white male patriarchy, misogyny, and wanting to have control over women's bodies, taking this back to before the 19th Amendment, taking this back to the 1800s. Actually, 1868 was actually referenced in Justice Alito's opinion. So they're trying to take this back to a time when women had, especially white women, had very little rights in this country. And at a time, if you go back to slavery, like I said before, African-American women were forced to carry their rapist babies, and African-American girls were forced to carry their rapist babies to terms. Now, a lot of white men want to have that same autonomy over white women. So when you flip the script, and I knew something like this was coming, when you flip the script and start dealing with the penis and Viagra and male impotency and things like this, you're going to see a stark difference and a stark hypocrisy with these old white men that's going to make it even worse. Because what we're seeing now, Roland, New York Times has an article about this from today or yesterday, how a lot of these Republicans like Mastriano and some of these other Republicans are trying to now moderate their staunch stance on abortion because now they have to go to the general election. They're the dog that caught the car, and now they really don't know what to do with it. So this is there was a poll that showed how women's reproductive rights or abortion is number 2 behind the economy when it comes to the 2022 midterm election. I think by November it's going to be number 1.
That is a crucial issue there, Kelly, because we just saw this week in Kansas where voters went to the polls and rejected what Republicans are putting forward. That has sent shockwaves across the country, but they were extremely smart in how they also marketed what the change of the Constitution could mean. And what we're now seeing, we're seeing 538 say Democrats could very well hold onto the House and the Senate. To Michael's point, we are seeing how significant the issue of choice is going to impact this election. In fact, yesterday, you look at the results in Tennessee, there were a number of hard right Republicans who lost elections in Tennessee. There is significant blowback, especially in the suburbs of this country.
Absolutely, because people aren't understanding specifically these white R. Kellys, such as Michael so colorfully described, and these old white men, and frankly, the women who support these old white men. They're not understanding that not only have times changed, but you cannot simply take away the autonomy of women that we have had for the past 50 plus years and act like everything is going to be okay. It's not. When you give someone a freedom, you cannot take that back and expect no consequences to be had. And back to the legislator of that jurisdiction talking about contraception, let's take it a step further. You know, because like I said, people aren't thinking about this. If you really want something inside of you that is really just a conglomerate of tissue to have autonomy, such that the woman who's carrying said conglomerate of tissue cannot abort it, let's give that conglomerate of tissue a social security number so we can collect taxes on it. Let's give the pregnant woman license for HOV lanes, even though there's one person in there. If it's a HOV too, she's technically having a second person in the car. No one's talking about that. No one's thinking about everything that's going to be impacted by way of taking away a person's freedom and infringing on their right to privacy in so doing. So I just hope that people come out to the polls, people vote against this archaic, asinine, and frankly just dumb perception of what is life, what isn't life, what women can do, what women can't do. I'm team mind your business. If it doesn't concern you, leave me alone. Leave me and my body alone. And frankly, the people of America are speaking now, specifically in Kansas and other jurisdictions that are having primaries right now. People are speaking out, and they're tired of it, myself included.
Matt, when you talk about this issue, this is where on the political front, if you are liberal, if you're progressive, if you are Democrat, you could have a very winning message based upon the type of overreach of the far right. And I think that's what we saw in Kansas. It's been very interesting watching white conservatives like Eric Erickson try to downplay it by saying, oh, this is what the Supreme Court wanted. They wanted the states to make these decisions. Okay. You start seeing wipeout of Republican leadership, and you're absolutely right. They're going to start trying to walk back. And the other thing is here, because it used to be, hey, they were against abortion, except in the case of incest and rape. Mm-hmm. Now they're passing these laws saying, no, incest and rape, forget it, no exceptions. That, to me, is also a huge part of this blowback.
I think so. And I think, Roland, I saw a graphic that said if you extrapolated those Kansas results out to the rest of the country, something like 80% of American voters would have rejected that proposition in Kansas. So I think, one, that's proof positive that the American people at large don't want this, number one. And as Michael and Kelly alluded to, I think what's especially smart or obvious about this is that they did not consider all of the things that would flow from this, i.e., whether a fetus or even before that point is a person for the purpose of the HOV lanes, is a person for the purpose of life insurance and all the other things that come with personhood. So it's clear they didn't think beyond just the political point of this. And I'm glad you mentioned this because I was on a political call today and someone mentioned the commercial I haven't seen yet, but apparently the Democrats here in Texas are running a commercial where a husband and wife are talking about what they need to do with their doctor, and their doctor basically indicates that they need to have a procedure. But the husband and wife look at each other and say, wait, we have to call Greg first. And the whole premise is we have to call Greg Abbott to make these decisions for our family. And that's running in Texas, and that's expected to get a lot of traction. So I think it's pretty obvious that the Republicans did not think further on this issue, and they didn't think about all the blowback, and they didn't think about all the people even within their party and on the fringes of the party who don't like, divesting women of their personal autonomy and bodyhood. So I'm glad to see this happening because it's very clear that they didn't think beyond this political issue, and it's starting to bite them in the butt now.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?